I've always considered ECOVACS to be one of the more innovative robot vacuum companies, and the new X8 Pro Omni is no exception. It's a major step forward in cleaning technology, AI, and Apple Home support. And while ECOVACS sent me this vacuum to check out ahead of the release, this video is not sponsored. Let's see how all this new AI and tech like self-cleaning mops and the Matter integration stand up to spills and the chaos in my home with 3 small children. If you're new here, I'm Eric Welander. I've been working in app development on top of Apple's platform since 2011 and building up my smart home here on YouTube since 2018. So if you're into Apple or smart home tech, consider subscribing. Now, with all the new AI features we'll get to in a minute, I get the impression ECOVACS is trying to make this a more intelligent and personable robot, which is why I think this thing needs a small hardware adjustment.
All right, so there's one step we forgot to do the first night with installation, which is that this vacuum needs some googly eyes. So let's put those on.
But before I got to putting googly eyes on my robot, what comes in the box and what's it like to get this thing set up in your home? Getting the X8 Pro Omni, I was struck by how much smaller the packaging was compared to other robots. This is in part due to a smaller base station, which we'll talk about in a minute, but it's also just efficient fiber-based packaging. One other way they've saved on space though is not including any spare parts like vacuum bags or brushes that come usually with a vacuum. This is fine, I guess. You can order more of these from ECOVACS and they aren't required to get the robot up and running. And I do like that it's a smaller box I can fit in my attic above my garage if I want to keep the box. Now, after you unbox all the pieces, you need to get the robot on your Wi-Fi using the ECOVACS iPhone app. Then it does an initial mapping of your primary floor where the base station is. It also auto-assigns room names, but you'll probably want to customize those in the app. For cleaning, the big new feature here is a roller mop that self-cleans. If you're trying to time the right generation to upgrade for a new robot vacuum, I think this represents what is a once in 5-year step in mopping. In 2015, ECOVACS introduced Osmo mopping, which was an industry first of mopping and vacuuming in the same robot. Remember when they had to be separate? Then in 2020, they took the mopping a step further with rotating mop pads, which are now basically the industry standard, since they do, I think, a better job of scrubbing your floors. Now, in 2025, ECOVACS is moving to a self-cleaning roller mop design. You might be wondering though, haven't robots been cleaning their mops for years? And yeah, that's true, but most modern robots have to go back to their base station to clean their mops with hot water, but that requires going back to the base station. If the robot picks up some debris on the mop, it's not cleaned off until it goes back to the base station. This means if your vacuum mops up a spill on the floor, it could be spreading remains of that spill over the rest of your floor before the mopping pad is washed. So in 2025, ECOVACS added hardware inside the robot to clean the mop while it's spinning. The roller is scrubbing your floor at 200 RPM and it can extend out from the edge of the robot to get into the dirtiest corners and edges of your room. The design borrows a lot of cleaning technology from ECOVACS' sister company, YIKO, which makes all kinds of other cleaning equipment like handheld mops. Anecdotally, I don't notice a huge difference though over previous mopping vacuums with those rotating mop pads, but that's for day-to-day cleaning of floors that are already pretty clean. It's also, though, still just nice peace of mind knowing that if the robot does pick up a spill of liquid or something while working, it's gonna clean the mop right away, similar to what a human would do. I wanted to really put this thing to the test. After my wife was already asleep, so she wouldn't know, I spilled a bunch of prune juice on the floor and had the robot clean it up. Now, I think the robot did a good job, but it was a lot more prune juice than I think it was built to handle. And while it mopped up all the visible juice, it ended up spreading kind of a thin, impossible to see layer of sticky residue from the juice around some of the rest of the floor. Not much bigger than the spill area, but still, it's there. So it also might be something of the texture of the prune juice that makes it challenging. At CES, the ECOVACS CEO mentioned to me that soy sauce was a good example of what the mop can clean off better than past versions. I also think it's the quantity of the liquid. A smaller amount seems to clean up much better. The way I think of it is, if it's a spill you would already notice, the robot probably shouldn't be the first to mop it up. But if you have smaller spills that you might not notice right away before you send the robot out, the mops can handle it better than previous robots. ECOVACS also has some experimental improvements to dirt and spot recognition in their AI menu that you can turn on in the settings, and that might improve this kind of performance over time. Speaking of AI, the thing I really notice a difference with is obstacle avoidance. The robot is so smart about just working around the mess my kids and family leave, and this is because the X8 Pro Omni combines front-facing cameras with Vision 3D structure sensors and a new vision language model, as ECOVACS calls it, and that helps the robot detect objects better and deal with them appropriately. It knows things like my cat bowls on the floor, which confused a lot of other robots, toys and cables and other items that could be an issue. And I've yet to see this robot get stuck somewhere after about a month of use. I also find it great at navigating around the chairs and table in our dining room. This always has crumbs underneath, but it can foil many robots in making them mostly avoid the area just because of all the obstacles they see. These AI sensors are also great at helping the robot clean the edges of rooms, which are a prime place for accumulating dust and dirt and cat hair. There's still one corner in my kitchen that robots fail to clean, including the X8 Pro Omni, but that's only one corner so far in my testing. Another impressive difference with the X8 Pro Omni is the suction and what it can lift up with all that 18,000 pascals of suction. My kids frequently leave pieces of crayon on the floor from a coloring session, and I had forgotten that they were there, but the X8 Pro Omni is able to suck them up no problem. I didn't even realize it was doing this until I inspected the dustbin for this review to see what it was picking up. The crayons didn't even make this vacuum miss a beat. Speaking of emptying out all that dirt back in the base station, which robots have been doing for a long time, this base station also got some new improvements. The most striking to me at first was just the frosted coating on the clean and dirty water tanks. It makes it so easy to see the level of each tank without having to check it by opening the lid or going into the app. It also has lots of features you would expect as standard today, like washing the mops we talked about earlier more thoroughly than the robot itself can with warm water, and has a removable mop basin tray for easy cleaning. ECOVACS also has a cleaning solution tank on the vacuum base station, which is wonderful. This means it'll mix that cleaning solution with the clean water for the mop. You don't have to mix it yourself. The base station will take care of it. Another increasingly common feature this robot has is remote video mode. You can set up a pin in the app and then use the robot as a moving camera in your home. It can patrol the floor looking for issues, or you can manually steer it. This performance is somewhat gated by the speed of your internet connection in your home, but it's a kind of impressive magic trick to show your friends. When you start a remote monitoring session to view the camera, the robot makes a loud announcement about it so everyone around the home knows that someone is watching. This can be a nice way to check in on animals or to see if you left the fridge door open or the stove on. But then there's YIKO. Oh, YIKO.
At your service.
I always called this YIKO with a Y sound, but my wife has me convinced it should probably use a Y with an E sound, so it's just ECO. If you aren't familiar, ECO is ECOVACS attempt at a voice assistant inside the robot. The idea is that you don't need to use one of your normal voice assistants to trigger the robot, which you could do, but you could also simply ask ECO. And if speaking isn't your thing, you can type to supposedly even smarter YIKO GPT in the app. I can't really understand why you would need the text chat in the app, but in my limited testing, it responded as if I was talking to it, so I'm not entirely sure there. For the voice commands, it's very rudimentary compared to most voice assistants in my experience. You must start with the commands OK and then ECO, and then pause before you say your actual command. Okay, YIKO.
At your service.
Please vacuum and mop the living room.
Okay, start vacuuming and mopping the whole house.
No. I'm not sure if this is just a software development issue or if the location of the mics on the vacuum down there on the floor limits what the microphone can actually pick up. Well, I mostly don't care about ECO. It actually came in really useful. In the early days of having this robot in our home, I was able to quickly tell my wife how to control the robot with her voice, and that worked. It was way easier than having to set her up with the app, which I eventually did, to get more granular control. Speaking of controlling the robot, you can, of course, use the ECOVACS app, but it also has shortcuts actions in the Shortcuts app for cleaning specific rooms, so you could tie it to automations there. The app is the place, though, where you can have the most granular control over the type of cleaning you want, including the flow rate of the mop, i.e. how wet do you want the floors when it's done cleaning, and how much overlap should the vacuum take as it makes lines around the room. Also things like, should it clean everything once or maybe twice? And having these super thorough cleaning settings is great if there's a point where you are gone, or maybe something else where you just want it to really dig in for a long time and clean everything really well. The biggest advancement in robot control is Matter support. No longer is this a simple on-off switch that isn't supported in most home platforms. Starting with iOS 18.4 and related releases, Apple is now supporting the ability to control robot vacuums just like other smart home accessories. You can even select the areas you define in the Robot Vacuum app as the specific places the robot should clean, along with if it should vacuum, mop, or both. ECOVACS' latest 2025 robots like the DBot X8 Pro Omni I'm testing here, and also their new T50 Max, support the new version of Matter, along with last year's DBot X2 model from ECOVACS. This will be rolling out in a firmware update from ECOVACS soon, and they gave me early access to the software to test out here. It's so cool that I can attach my robot vacuum's detailed settings to an Apple home scene, and of course, Apple Home buttons. Stay tuned to my channel for more about Matter vacuum support in the future. Which reminds me, you should subscribe to my channel if you aren't already. Thanks again so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.